Oh, hey gang. Just watching Indiana Jones. You know, I still remember the first time I saw this film as a child. I still feel the same way about it now as I did back then. This is woefully inaccurate! Where's the peer-reviewed study? It's been an hour, I haven't seen him fill out one grant application yet! It's all lies! Hollywood lies! Put down the bullwhip. Remove the fedora. No, you can't pull it off. It's time to experience the life of a real archaeologist. Oh yes, spend weeks alone in the libraries of Western Europe, increasing your knowledge of ancient cultures in order to improve your chances of unearthing one of their treasures, hitherto lost in time. This will allow you to bring said artifacts back to where they belong in Europe, where you can give talks and put on exhibitions detailing your achievements. Over the years, you will gain the admiration and respect of your colleagues until one day you'll find yourself a prestigious leader in your field. You'll look back and wonder what it was all for. What happened to that simple, pure love of history? Thebes! Thebes is a game of two things: luck mitigation and time management. Now, those two things might sound boring, but playing with them is anything but. Let me show you. It's 1901! And the great centres of learning are here in Western Europe, and that's where your career will begin. But don't worry, soon enough you'll be travelling in the direction of the Middle East, where the great centres of learning used to be. But you can't just go scrabbling around in the dirt with a shovel. If I told you to go and dig me up some artefacts, exactly where would you dig and how? No, your first step leads to the great universities and libraries of Western Europe, where ancient tomes and accounts and colleagues can be referenced, and through judicious study lead to knowledge. That's what these cards are, that's what they represent. The fruits of those endeavours, your knowledge of an ancient people, their culture and history. This one is orange, which is Greek knowledge, obviously. Having this knowledge means you're going to be able to correctly discern the best places to dig and identify important artefacts. So the more of it you have, the more likely you're going to be able to conduct a successful dig, which is good. You see, when you embark on an expedition, a dig works like this. You're going to get one of these cool little bags, a bag full of possibilities. Inside here are all sorts of ancient treasures and artifacts. And when you dig, you get to excavate around inside the bag and hopefully find, well, nothing. But other times, you'll hit pay dirt and find artifacts that are worth loads of points. So in order to improve your chances of finding one of those big prizes, you want to pull as many of those tiles as possible from the bag. That's what your knowledge allows you to do. You get to consult this cool little archaeologist's tool. Now, I never studied archaeology, so I don't know what it's called, but you can select how much knowledge you have in a particular area here at the top, and then it will show you in red how many tiles you can pull from the bag. Of course, digging for longer will drastically improve your odds as well. The more time you spend, the more potential finds. But that will cost you dearly in time, and time is what Thebes is all about. You may have noticed this track running around the outside of the board. Now it ends at 52 because this is actually a time track. The longer you spend engaged in activities and research, the quicker you're going to whiz around it. So you may feel pretty pleased with yourself after a successful dig surrounded by all of your gold and glaze, but that gold may begin to lose its luster when you realise that you've handed your opponents the most precious thing in the universe: time. You see, the person furthest behind in time always takes their turn next. Always. That means the person last may be able to take a number of quick turns in a row. This can be an enormously powerful position to be in, as they can take a much less pressured and considered approach to what they're doing. Look, most of the time you're going to be racing around Europe fighting over what's available. See, old Red here, he wants to read some ancient Egyptian tome, and that's in Rome. Okay, so he travels via Vienna to Rome. That's 2 spots. That's 2 weeks travel time. But knowledge isn't free, my friends, oh no. The more profound the information, the more time it will take to read and digest. This stuff takes 2 weeks to learn. That's 4 weeks, a month in total it's taken him to learn this stuff. But it's his now, his knowledge. No one can take it away from him, and no one else can learn it, which granted is hugely unthematic, but it means there's constant friction over who gets what. Now, when you pick up a card, a new one is drawn, a new opportunity comes into play. It could be anything and appear anywhere. What if that knowledge that you worked so hard to obtain is replaced with something much better, which is also much closer? You might be handing the next player much richer pickings. But what if you were also the next player? If you know you have the time to have multiple turns in a row, you can be much smarter and take advantage of more opportunities. Maybe Old Red stops over in Vienna to pick up some knowledge about Mesopotamia, making more efficient use of his time. And if something incredible does appear, he's going to be in a much better position to take advantage of that. So, just stay in Europe. Stay in the cafes and museums soaking up all of this knowledge until you're fit to burst, and then go on expedition. Oh, you nearsighted fools. Of course not. Remember these bags? Well, just like real life, each location has a limited amount of treasure that can potentially be found. In fact, each one has a different distribution, which you know ahead of time. When you pool these finds, you obviously pocket them, limiting the potential number of finds left hidden in the bag. But what about all that dirt and debris you uncovered, the blank tokens? Well, that's not coming home with you. Oh no, that's staying right here. Meaning with every expedition, the bags become harder and harder to pull joy from, and no one is ever going to have more of a chance of finding something good than the first person to attack it with their shovel. Oh, but Thebes doesn't stop there. Oh no. It sprinkles sugar across the honeypot by guaranteeing finds if you're the first person to excavate in a location. No matter how inept you are or how quickly you dig, if you're the first person at a location to conduct an expedition, you're going to go home with something. So as soon as one player does finally break away and head off to start excavating, the rest of the players are left with this really tough decision of potentially letting them have free reign in that area of the world, potentially collecting all of these easy points, or opposing them and trying to head them off. So you end up with this weird kind of Cold War situation where people start arming themselves with knowledge and equipment and research assistance. All the time you're constantly watching your opponents, watching what they're investing in. Are they a danger to you? Should you enter into competition with them or leave them unopposed in that area? He's got a lot of knowledge in one particular field. Is he getting ready to make his move? Maybe you should strike first, because unlike the Cold War, the fallout here is inevitable. Thebes shows how it's possible to have tension and drama without relying on heavy-handed theming or direct player conflict. It also shows that with just a few simple rules, you can present players with interesting strategic and tactical choices. I bet you've had a little think about how you'd like to play this game. Not in depth, but you've probably wondered at least, if you'd specialise or generalise. When a puzzle is interesting and accessible, the mind can't help but engage. By the time you've thrown in the last few card types, the game is providing you with some delicious decisions to make every turn. Exhibitions are offered for a limited time. If you have the right number of artifacts and can get to the depicted city in time, you can show off your plunder for an impressive amount of points. Interestingly, the point value of the individual artifacts is irrelevant, making every find potentially lucrative and adding to the strategic value of those initial guaranteed finds. The more talks you give, the more widespread your name. If you do enough of these, you could win the game without ever even digging. One research assistant is useless, which is thematically accurate, but more of them give you knowledge, which works in every field. Each additional type offers you a different strategic or tactical advantage, and often has you balancing your long-term goals against potential short-term gains. So you're constantly assessing these potential acquisitions, if they'll fit into your game plan. Maybe you need to change things up a little bit to take advantage of a new opportunity you weren't expecting, all the while taking care to keep your eye on that time track and watch what your opponents are doing. Now, I don't want to overstate Thebes' attributes. I've talked about how it has strategy and tactics and tension and drama, and while all of that is true, It's also true that in the pantheon of games in our wonderful hobby, it registers on these scales, but only just. But that's not the point. The point is that they are all present and that they're accessible to everybody, even people that don't normally play this type of game. It's for these reasons that I think Thebes is an often overlooked game that you can take and show to people that don't play many games and say, look how these can be different to what you're used to. Look at what these can do. The rules are so simple and easy to teach. You know how to play Thebes as well as I do. And yet there's strategy and tactics here, and they're not buried in the sand. They become self-evident with play. Of course, just because it's accessible to everybody doesn't mean everybody's going to enjoy it. By now it should be obvious that the beating heart of Thebes resides within these little cloth bags, and so you had better be on board with what they represent. Not everyone will be. You see, by the very nature of luck mitigation, occasionally you're going to break the odds, and you're going to get a really lucky haul. But just as occasionally, you're going to get unlucky, and despite your best efforts, your incredible planning and prudence and forethought, you're going to get nothing. And that just won't feel fair. It is fair. It is. That's how probability works. Occasionally you're going to find yourself on the tail end of that curve. But knowing that in the head is not the same as knowing it in the heart. We're emotionally driven creatures, and for most, understanding that you can only manipulate the odds to a certain degree won't help alleviate that feeling of injustice at a particularly unlucky haul. And that's not fun. Of course, these events are rare, and the potential each time you go on an expedition for either a catastrophe or a miracle is where a lot of the fun and drama lies. But for some, it's just going to be a sword hanging over the entire game, ready to crash into it at any moment. And if that sounds like you or your group, I really think you need to be honest about that and avoid Thebes at all costs. The final facet of Thebes that should either draw the crowd or send them running is the nature of its competition. Now, for most of us, one of the primary reasons we love this hobby is that it lets us interact with our friends and sometimes strangers in fun and interesting ways. And so one of the cardinal descriptors for a game is the form that that interaction takes. Now, Thebes is obviously a competitive game, but it doesn't involve direct player conflict. You're not burning your opponent's books or stealing their artifacts. Each player is allowed to pursue his or her strategy and build their character without fear of any of their effort being torn away from them. The most you can ever really do is slow someone else down or beat them to the punch. Of course, for many, this is a massively liberating feature. A lot of people really don't like that kind of aggressive confrontation in a game. In fact, the perception that it exists in board games, all of board games, is one of the reasons why a lot of people don't ever really explore them. They'll run a race with you and they'll run their hardest, but throwing rocks and tripping up their opponents just doesn't appeal to their sense of fun. Then there's the other kind. If you and your group enjoy that kind of direct player conflict, then honestly you're probably used to games that register a little bit more highly on some of these gauges. If you're used to the tension of survival, then the tension of making sure you've got the optimum types of cards that you want might fall a little flat. And if you're used to the drama of some pivotal battle that decides the fate of the entire game, then the drama of pulling tiles from a bag might ultimately seem a little dull. At any rate, it's a major consideration if you're thinking about purchasing Thebes. And that about wraps it up, gang. I do hope that that was useful for you and that you've got an idea now if Thebes is a good fit for you or your group. It's certainly going to stay on my shelves for the time being. It's quite a unique game. Nothing quite does what Thebes does, and I've had great success with it, both with groups that are full of board game enthusiasts and with people that don't really play games much at all. As always, if you've got any questions or comments about this game or any other, please get in contact with me. I will try and respond if I can, but if you're watching this video more than about a week after it's gone up, I suggest you use one of these methods of contacting me because it's much more likely that I'll be able to see your message. But until next time, gang, take care and I'll see you soon.